we've seen a lot of players today unhappy with their contracts and owners kind of trying to enforce their contracts for players who are under contract. So what's your perspective on are players justified in holding out on contracts while they're under contract?
Yeah, that's a good question. We definitely see this in the NFL a lot. I think especially with there because it is a high contact level sport where you're not really guaranteed to have a long career depending on, I guess, how you play and the position you play, and then just one play can change everything. So you really got to take advantage of your situation. So I think players are justified in wanting to hold out, especially if their play has shown, okay, I want to go back to the table, have a contract extension, or just renew a contract. Like we definitely, especially see it after players are about to end their rookie deal, wanting to take advantage of the opportunity that they have, especially if they had a very good season. I think for the owners and GMs too, you probably want to get it done early because then the longer you wait, the higher it's going to be. So players, I think, can are really want to have that, take advantage of that, and I think especially with the star players, they probably have more leeway because then if you're not as situated with how you are in the league, it could be tough because they could easily replace you. If the you got to make yourself you got to make yourself stand out. You got to make yourself valuable to where they find value in you. Where okay, if we don't have this person on the field, we have to pay them. So if they want to renew their contract early, I think that would be good. So I think you really just have to make yourself stand out, but also I think it's definitely well thought out to hold out, especially if you are considering playing in the sport long term.
So I think the hard part in terms of professional sports is just trying to find a contract where you have enough leverage and also security. I think that's the main point that a lot of players are getting at as far as renegotiation is in terms of just trying to maximize their playing time in their career. So I think in terms of where my perspective lies, it kind of depends on what seat I'm sitting in. If I'm like an agent, for a player, I definitely understand, wanting to renegotiate, especially in football where, one play can end it all and you're definitely risking a lot. So I think the economic model, considering that the money is not guaranteed, a lot of players don't have leverage. I mean, we've seen with Micah Parsons just how that situation navigated. It's a lot of double-sided coins that you kind of have to factor in when you're an owner and a player in the GM situation. But are players justified? Yes, but I don't think that they're just because you hold out. I don't think there's any guarantees. It's a coin flip on as far as like what things are going to happen, kind of thing.
hmm
So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's tough too because if you hold out after a certain time, you're basically have to give money back. You're not going to get the money that you did sign on. I believe. I think there's situations where you might be fined for missing games or just a certain time period. So it's kind of a 50-50 or kind of pros and cons to each. So you have to really plan it out and then see, okay, can you afford to sit up at the same time? You want to make sure that you're protecting yourself and how you want your career to go. So it's definitely pros and cons to each, and it's just a tough situation to be in.
yeah. And then you also have, as you were saying before, you have star players who outperform their contracts. So I think that's kind of where owners have the perspective of this is why there's incentive in your contracts to kind of incentivize you to kind of perform and meet, certain measurables and deliverables. But I think that at the end of the day, I think you should get every dollar that's yours. And I think that if you have leverage to get more, you should get more. But I don't think that means you're entitled to more. That's the only thing in the perspective for me, though.
hmm Yeah, continuing on with this topic, we see with contract holdouts, it could cause a big stir, whether it be in the media or within the locker room. Would you say it's fair to call a player greedy for wanting a raise after outperforming their deal?
I think that sports is a business, and I think that in a business you want to capitalize on everything that's yours. I think that when people have family and responsibilities and things they need to take care of, you can't tell another man what he should or shouldn't want. Because at the end of the day, there's a purpose. I understand sports. There's a genuine love. Like for example, when me and you used to play basketball and stuff like that, it was this genuine love. There was no pressure on it. But it's different if we playing basketball to pay the bills to keep the lights on. It's a different negotiation tactic. It adds certain pressure on it. So I don't think a player is greedy for it, but I do think even if you don't get it at a certain level of professionalism that you do have to carry yourself with because just because you don't have it today don't mean you're not going to have it tomorrow. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think the key word you said there, you have to have a professional mindset to get it done. So I think as long as you're doing that and you're just basically sticking up for yourself because you want to get paid what you're owed and you want to see your value played out. So you want to really, especially with all the sacrifices that you make for the game, especially within football, there's a lot of hard work that goes into getting to where you are, especially if you want to be one of the top players in the league. So I think I don't think it's fair to call a player greedy for wanting to raise. I think it's good for them to stick up for what they want and really just put yourself out there and say, okay, I believe this is what I'm owed. Here's what I've done, and I'm going to continue to do this, or I plan to continue to do this. So I think I should be paid what's fair and just. So I think it's good. I think also it helps out the GMs and owners to pay earlier because then if they continue on that pace and as time goes on, the cap space definitely increases, and then we see one player might set the standard, and then the next player is going to want at least that or then some. So it's going to continue to increase. So you want to get a deal done early as long as you see value both in the player and the player is producing that value. I think it's fair for them to at least make a claim to want to have a raise after outperforming their deal.
Yeah, and the football business model to a certain percentage is just based on trying to be the highest paid player in the position. And I definitely think there's a certain skill set that demands that. But I think for me, my negotiating leverage would just be on my performance, not necessarily what the next man is doing, because I try not to count the next man's pockets. So I think that may be a stronger leverage position instead of trying to be the highest paid. That's always the goal, get everything that you're owed to. But I think it's just more so like your skill set and your performance. But, with the NFL, the way the game is played. It's a lot of risk on both sides. You don't want to play a player, 50 million and he's out the whole season. I think that's just, nobody wants that from a fan, owner, and a player perspective. But, injuries are, what comes with the game, I guess. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say, because when we see these different player holdouts, it does become a media story. What would you say for people saying, oh, yeah, it brings distraction to the locker room? Do you think it can mess up team chemistry and just overall, just the team going into a season?
I think it depends on where the player is in his lifespan of being a pro athlete. I think when you're in the first early years, to a degree, it's about getting paid versus if you're a veteran and have already made your money. So I think the perspective is going to be different. And I definitely do think the morale in the locker room will be affected. But at the end of the day, you know, some people prioritize getting a check and some people prioritize the love of the game. And I think that the greats prioritize the love of the game more than a check, but where the perspective lies as far as, what you value more, it depends on the reflection in the mirror. But I definitely do think money ruins relationships 100% of the time. What about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's tough. I think as long as you are just keeping things professional, because there are situations where a person, because they want that contract, or they maybe if they don't get the contract, want to request a trade, they might cause things in the locker room on purpose just so they can uh, escalate that process to leaving or getting that contract. So we see, I guess, different situations, but I think as long as the person's professional, they are, I think, like, as we were saying, just staking their claim as to why they want to justify getting a raise. I think a lot of players also understand because they're also in a situation where maybe they're in the future going to be in that situation. They want to have that same level of respect. They want to have their teammates back. They want to see, okay, that player is getting the most out of their value, the most out of their time in the NFL. So I think it's definitely good too. I think as long as you don't cause distraction, I think the teammates will probably be fine. Whether they'll probably say, oh yeah, the person deserves whatever they're trying to get, and that we want to support them. So I think we see that playing throughout, but I think it'd be tough too. There's a way where I think a player can make it things more crazy on purpose, and then as far as I guess wanting to get something done under any circumstances, but there's situations where players, okay, here's a situation I want to stick up for myself and want to get the most that I can out while I'm playing, and there's a way where it can be professional and then not cost too much things going on in the background.
And you got to be careful because when you get out of this deal, you got to explain to your teammates and your organization why you carried yourself like that. And I think sometimes how you leave a situation is going to affect how you enter, just like a relationship. If you leave a certain way, your next relationship is going to be affected because there's going to be certain questions, and the owner may have a perspective. Well, okay, if you're unhappy with the deal that I just gave you, what you said you just wanted, and 6 months to 10 months down the line, you throw a hissy fit because you're not satisfied. It's just morale that I want to bring into my organization. So it could, in the long run, work against you in terms of your player image and just how teammates perceive you. So that's why I say you always got to be smooth and suave and just, how you carry yourself with things. But yeah, it's definitely colorful, to say the least. So.